So, last time we ended on the sad news of Confidential being cancelled. It was pretty sad to see that show go with everything it had going for it, despite the last series not being up to quality of the earlier seasons. But the team was still determined to still let us look at the behind the scenes of the show, with featurettes from replacements, in the form Behind the Lens, Doctor Who Extra, and Doctor Who Closer Look. I'm here to see if any of these replacements could live up to the original show. Were we on a roll with any of them, or should we have stopped caring after Confidential left? It's time to find out. Despite a Confidential ending with Series 6, there was no behind the scenes special made for the Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, despite in an interview with Zai Bennett in Point of View saying that 10 minutes had been filmed for the special. Still, Confidential fans were given the good news when in early 2012, from producer Carol Skinner, that there was going to be featurettes made in the style of Confidential's behind the scenes segments that were going to be posted online after the Series 7 episode had aired later that year. With this announcement, it was either going to be something really good or something really bad. And was it? It was a bit of a downgrade. These segments were now 5 minutes in length, which were even shorter than Confidential's cut downs. Along with the shortened time length, there was now no narrator, which I surely missed after getting used to having the narrator help wrap around the episode for the last 6 seasons. Apart from that, there isn't that much in these featurettes. There's nothing much I can say from them apart from the fact that they're really good, but I only wish they were longer. Like 15 minutes, just like the last one, The Last Days of the Ponds, which goes into Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill's final days on set as they did their scenes in early 2012. And because of the extended length, you can really feel the loss of missing these two characters more than you would have if the featurette had been 5 minutes. Anyways, there weren't any featurettes for the Snowmen, but they did return for Series 7 Part 2 when they became Doctor Who Behind the Scenes. Behind the Scenes basically retained the short length of the Part 1's featurettes with one big exception. They got a narrator again, and it's Richard Bacon of BBC Radio fame. Okay. Not the person I was thinking of, but I will say he does make this a little bit more interesting. Despite the fact there's now a new narrator, there aren't any other changes to the featurettes. After Series 7 Part 2's featurettes were finished, we had the next two specials to look forward to, and luckily we got bigger behind the scenes featurette with the new title Behind the Lens. Finally, it was longer than 3 minutes and they brought back past Doctor Colin Baker to do the one for the Day of the Doctor. It felt like they were finally getting back into what they'd missed, and as you can tell, it's my biased favourite due to them finally getting everything right. There was one last one to mark the Christmas special and the final for Matt Smith, which is a bit shorter than the Day episode, and there was a new narrator called Matt Bolton, who seemed like a passable narrator for his first try, but already I knew this wasn't going to top my favourite one. So really, all I was looking forward to was just how they were going to change the featurettes for a new Doctor, if they were going to continue them after all. New Doctor, new era. The last time we had a new Doctor, the current behind the scenes were fine and continue what they had, but with no continuing series, what are we going to do this time? Well, remember the featurettes from Series 7? Well, somebody had the bright and good idea to expand on these and make them 10-minute behind the scenes episodes with the new title, Doctor Who Extra. Now I think this is a good idea because I think we're all too sure that we wouldn't get a new proper series, but this one could be a good substitute. Did it work? Not really this time. It's because of two reasons. One is that instead of focusing on the elements that work, where they show the behind the scenes, they go for the stuff that shows about the main actors, the guests and the writers, which in a truncated time frame just doesn't work. If it wants to be extra, then it should have gone for the stuff that people really cared about, such as the crew that work behind the scenes instead of the people just in the camera. The other is the narrator. Now, remember when I said I sort of passed over the narrator for the time of the Doctor Behind the Lens, Matt Bolton? Well, he's kind of the second reason why I don't think it works. He just doesn't work because I feel like he's trying to be too engaged, and I think the way you have to play it is like you have to narrate a documentary. Listen back to what Tennant, Pegg, Gateshead, Price, Tovey, to a lesser extent Bacon did with theirs, and compare it with Bolton's and you can see what I mean. So what? Everything about this is terrible? Well, no, to be honest. There are 3 episodes which I think are good representations of what the series is. These are the episodes for Deep Breath, Flatline, and Death in Heaven. With Deep Breath and Flatline, it's a sense of those being the ones mostly focused on the behind the scenes part, especially with the finale being longer than the usual episodes, meaning that that one got the special treatment of being much closer to behind the lens from the previous year, or even the early confidentials. Then there was the episode for Series 8's Christmas special, Last Christmas. It baits you in by getting it introduced by Nick Frost, and now you're thinking that they've got rid of Matt Bolton, but no, they've still got him in, and it's a bit of a disappointment because Nick would have made for a lovely guest narrator, but then again, it could have been budget issues or time with Nick being so busy with other projects. Otherwise, it's just the usual Doctor Who extra of all the Christmas trimmings. So, I guess Doctor Who Extra had a fair crack of the whip because it was back for Series 9, but was it going to be better than before? That is actually hard to tell. But let's go through the changes. Extra Series 8 episodes tended to be between 10 to 14 minutes long. Series 9s were now between 6 to 12. So this means that we already have a disadvantage in the season compared to the last one because they're going to have less time to talk about the behind the scenes aspects than before, which is a bit of a shame, but something that's a bit questionable about the length is that these are from the compilation edits especially made for the Series 9 DVDs, because otherwise you're actually looking at 1 to 2 minute short featurettes. Anyways, what else changed? Well, Matt Bolton left the series after last Christmas, and so narrating duties actually changed over to a guest star from the series, Rufus Hound. We provided some Rufus Cam segments to the woman who lived since he was in the episode and could provide some on-set details on the episode itself. He wasn't the only one, with guest star Maisie Williams picking up the camera for her appearances in the series with her Maisie Cam. At this point, we got into the proper internet era of the show, which is what this series was definitely designed for, with all the segments being bite-sized chunks, small enough to get into and get out of it from the actors and the writers side of things. Occasionally, depending on which episode, you could see some proper behind-the-scenes work done, but it wasn't as valued as it was before, as you can tell from the ratio of segments that were more in the favour of the writers and the actors than the crew. If I had to guess, the only ones I really would recommend are the 2-episode finale, because the episodes themselves and not the content. I think in the case of Heaven Sent, it is just because you can see a glimpse of the style of work that they did on this one. Apart from this, the show did actually return for the next Christmas special, but Rufus Hound was changed out for guest star Matt Lucas, which seemed fitting at the time. But best of all was that it was now 19 minutes long and actually tackled something that I'd been asking them to do since Series 6, more behind the scenes work, especially with a design heavy episode like this one. Finally, it was about time, wasn't it? 2016 marked the first year without anything Who related during the year until Christmas, but does this mean that Extra is gone? Nope, it was still hanging in there as it returned yet again, with guest star now supporting star Matt Lucas swapped out for the guest star of the special Charity Wakefield, who uses an actual British accent for this one, which I'd never noticed before watching this. The special is now 23 minutes long, which meant we got even more behind the scenes fun, and Charity acted as host to some of the parts, which frankly made it a lot more fun in my eyes. We finally broke the mold and it worked. Could this mean that Series 10 could do the same? Only time would tell as we waited and waited for the next series to come. What we ended up getting was another series of Extra, except for a title change. This was now Doctor Who Inside Look, and to be honest it was basically the same thing as before, but with a changed name and no narrator this time. Instead of the repackaged segments originally for YouTube, these are basically behind the scenes of reviews for talking head segments by anyone who wanted to talk about the episode itself. And you know what? After all the experimentation post-Confidential, I think this is finally the point where they figured out how to do this. It's a bit of a shame because most of the episodes just mesh together. Well, I would say that, except for one. Yes, because now we have to talk about the Twice Upon a Time episode, which isn't technically an inside look, but it's actually the last vestiges of Doctor Who Extra, which now opens up a whole heap of questions, like, if this is a Doctor Who Extra, does that mean that Series 10 was going to host the first series of Extra, and they didn't want to do it? Does this mean that there was going to be more behind the scenes material for Series 10 that we don't have? Anyways, the special was 21 minutes long and it really does feel like a nice special to the episode itself. It has enough that they want to talk about with the crazy episode it's accompanying, with classic scenes remade, a wacky adventure in World War I, the Arctic, and many things returning such as Bill and Nardole. But also they get to end it on the regeneration to show us that even though that one story has ended, another one was just round the corner. Here we go again, it seems. New Doctor, new showrunner, new era. Well, that's what Chibnall's reinvention felt like back in 2018. But the weirdest thing was that Inside Look was back again with a new name, but it felt like it never went away. It seemed that Inside Look was the pilot series for the format and Closer Look was just a reinvention. But there was something quite odd about Closer Look in general this year, but it depended on which version you could watch. There was the iTunes versions, which tended to be the behind-the-scenes aspects of the series, the BBC America edits, where they'd edit them down, possibly to include them after the episodes finished to fill more airtime, and strangely enough, there was a YouTube version which had the strangest inclusion of all. YouTube had access to all areas, where the behind-the-scenes segments were hosted in wraparounds, hosted by Yinka Bokini. I'd never seen this version before, so I have to actually thank fellow member Ben for pointing these out for me. Apparently this was a follow-up to Doctor Who The Fan Show, which I'm not including because it wasn't a behind-the-scenes show, unlike this, which it is, but with just filmed wraparounds. Anyway, Anyways, of course Revolution got an episode by itself, being 11 minutes long, which meant they got to talk a lot about the stuff such as the character development of Ryan and the exciting car chase of Lynn. Unfortunately, Yinka didn't return, so the episode has no wraparounds or linking segments, which is a bit of a shame because I think they worked. Also, speaking about Closer Look, they didn't call this episode a Closer Look and decided to give it a generic behind the scenes name, which kind of stuck with the consistency, but we did come from a series which changed its title in the same year last year. So, as before, Closer Look was back and basically had been the same as it had been for the last couple of years. No narrator, no wraparound segments. Not really much to add, to be honest. I guess finally they had a template, which I guess is finally good because it means they don't have to change it again. However, I do feel disappointed with these Closer Looks compared to the last bunch, and I think it has to do with the truncated time frame of them being 3 to 5.5 minutes long. With this truncated time frame in mind, they only really have time to look at a couple of things to do with the behind the scenes aspects of the episodes, and that's what they had done so far, and I was fine with it. But come Series 12, they started to only focus on one scene, which didn't really work, because it would often be the scenes of the moments which wouldn't be as interesting as the parts which I think people really wanted to see, such as the episode that accompanied Futures of the Dragoon, where it showed the most of the Dragoon scenes instead of the scenes which I think everybody was wanting to know about, such as the Jack return and the reveal. The most disappointing one, however, was the one done for Revolution of the Daleks, and guessing from how past specials has extended runtimes because they were special compared to the other episodes, you'd hazard a guess that this one would be extended too, right? Nope, it's 4 minutes long and they only focus on the Return of the Doctor scene for the entire 4 minutes, meaning if you wanted to know how they did the special effects of the Osaka scene or how they got the Daleks on the Clifton suspension bridge, then you're gonna have to dig that information for yourself. So, did Flux continue to have a third series of Closer Look? Well, actually no. And there's not been a confirmed reason for why, but I think I can ponder a good reason. You see, there's this thing called COVID-19 going around, and I think that makes the behind-the-scenes team filming the other team in tandem a little bit harder to realise because of how much they would have to do a lot of preparations to make sure that the actors and the crew would be safe, than having their health possibly affected by the amount of people being there. So, I think it's best that they rest the Closer Look for the meantime until things get better. Mind, there was behind-the-scenes featurettes talking about the series of ideas behind it, but no proper behind-the-scenes material in this series apart from the short ones on YouTube and on the DVD. As previously mentioned, with COVID affecting Series 13, this meant there was going to be no behind-the-scenes series that accompanied the proper series. However, with a new era on the horizon and COVID being less restrictive these days, I can see the idea of a behind-the-scenes series coming back. After all, I think we all want to know how the new era would be made. What I'm not saying, however, is that I want Confidential back. As much as I think we'd all love it to be back, it's been well rested and I think it left a good legacy on which it stands on. Well, I hope you enjoyed this weird 2-part look back into the behind-the-scenes series of Doctor Who. It's weird to find out how much Confidential really had when I was looking back at it. I mean, we look back at the show thinking it was such a great thing with no mistakes, when really it was a fine enough addition to the first couple of years of the revival. I was also surprised to see that its legacy outstayed the length of time that Confidential was on, only taking these last 2 years off due to worldwide circumstances. Anyways, as always, thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the content that we make. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.